Good afternoon. I'm Ellen from ScotlandShop, and today we're at the Old Course Hotel having a chat about St Andrews and the Old Course and Tartan with Mr Niall Campbell, front of House Concierge. Would you care to share a bit more about yourself? How long have you lived in St Andrews and how long have you worked with the Old Course Hotel?
My full name is Niall Murray Campbell, so a good Scottish name I've always felt.
Scottish name, yeah.
67 years young. I was born locally. As a family we moved about a bit, but we always seem to come back to St Andrews. So for the bulk of my life, St Andrews has always been home. Schooled locally, and as a family we came back here in 1969, a year after the Old Course Hotel had actually opened. When coming up the drive, the now drive, the central part of the hotel was the first part. There have been extensions in both directions. But never in my wildest dream did I ever think I would end up working for the Old Course Hotel. I joined the hotel as a seasonal employee in 2008 with the golf team. We were located at the far end of the hotel. Did that for approximately 5 seasons and moved to concierge in March, April 2013. So as of March this year, I've served 10 years full-time with the Old Course Hotel.
Yeah, very good.
So as part of the concierge team, we're the meet and greet group. When the guests first arrived at the hotel, our job is to welcome them, bring them into the hotel, introduce them to reception, look after their luggage. One of my colleagues, who's normally on the door, would offer to help park the vehicles. Sometimes I would be involved in doing that. Sometimes the room's not always ready, so we look after luggage. When the room's ready, it's taken to the room.
Okay.
Also, if the room is ready, we will direct the guests to the room and sometimes actually take them up to the room, especially if they're new guests who don't know the hotel. Welcome them into the room and give them an orientation of the room, showing all the dials and switches to use for air conditioning, TV, etc. Ask them if we can be of any further help. Welcome them to the hotel, hope they enjoy their stay, and then interact with them to the stay until they leave.
And can I just ask, do you get a lot of international guests here?
Very much so. COVID was a big downturn. But because of its St Andrews and golf, all guests from all 4 points of the compass come here. We get a lot of Scandinavian guests in the early part of the season, and the latter part, especially Finland and Sweden. The golf courses haven't opened up. The snow hasn't quite receded, and then later on the year they come back before the snow. I would probably say that the bulk of the overseas guests are from the United States. But increasing numbers from Canada, Australia, China, Japan.
So a massive variety.
And South America, Brazil, Argentina and Chile.
Brilliant.
So yes, very
large variety. Have you met any famous golfers while you've been working at the Old Course?
I have.
Have you?
But customer confidentiality does not permit me to reveal.
Discuss those.
But over the years, whether it's as a spectator or as happened in the United States, I had a holiday in the United States some time ago, and I had the pleasure of meeting and talking to Jack Nicklaus, who was a favourite golfer of mine for decades. And through the years, past Open champions I've met, Peter Thompson from Australia, Lee Trevino from the States. So there have been a number
that you have met,
and I have, as you might imagine, I have seen a few through my work.
I can imagine.
Through my work. Yes.
So that brings me on to ask: are you a golfer?
Retired. I started playing golf years ago. My father encouraged me. And then again, going back to the 60s, watching the greats, the Nicklauses, the Palmers, and the players. There was a tournament between the three of them, so that would be on our TV quite a bit. So that inspired me. And just being in St Andrews.
Yes, because you're surrounded by it, aren't you?
Surrounded by it.
Yeah,
It's on our doorstep. I would never say I hit the heights of playing golf. I enjoyed it. There's an old phrase, I could drive for show, but I couldn't putt for the dough.
Right, okay.
So put a driver in my hand, I was fine, but put a putter in my hand, I fell to pieces.
Oh dear.
So yes.
Yeah. And do you have a favourite course around St Andrews that you like to play on?
When time and golf permitted, certainly the old course and the new course, which is in that direction, just by that clubhouse over there.
Right.
The new course is quite strange. It's only 127 years old. So for St Andrews, that's new.
That's quite new, yeah.
And then down the coast, there's Balcomie Links at Crail. That was a favourite.
Too, yeah. They're so scenic. It's such a beautiful place, isn't it?
I never had the chance to play Kings Barnes. I'd have liked to have done that,
but oh well. And you touched a little bit on the history of St Andrews there. Yeah. Are you a local historian, or would you know a lot about the history of St Andrews?
I would class myself as a historian, but because I've learnt a few things, because it helps our guests.
Of course.
And the painting, which is by the concierge desk, has been a great boon for us, being able to tell a bit about the history of St Andrews and showing people on that paper where they might like to go and visit.
Yes. Okay.
So I reckon I have amassed a reasonable amount of knowledge about the town.
Okay. Mary Queen of Scots stayed here. Do you know about that? Did you know where she stayed?
She had quite an association with St Andrews and the local area. There's actually a college, part of the university college called St Mary's. It's in South Street, one of the three principal streets in the city. And she lived in a house. If you were to walk through the gate of St Mary's, it's on the right-hand side. It's one of the oldest parts of the university.
Yeah.
And in the grounds, very close by, there is a very old tree which is rumoured, and I think it's fairly true, that Mary Queen of Scots planted it.
Oh, really? Wow.
But she, through her family, I believe her mother, Mary of Guise, at one time was the regent, her regent, because she came to the throne at a very young age. She was her regent, and she was at one time in St Andrews Castle. Yes. At the time when it was bombarded and destroyed.
One of the many times.
Yes.
Okay.
And then locally, the Falkland Palace, which is about 15 to 16 miles from St Andrews, a great amount of influence there. And she introduced or brought over real tennis. There's a real tennis court there where you played in a courtyard, more like a game of squash off the walls.
Oh, wow. And in that connection with history, do you know your own tartan connections?
Yes, I suppose I'm able to wear one or two tartans.
Yes.
Campbell being the principal one. The ancient Campbells would be probably my favourite, although I like also Campbell of Loudon. So that's the two Campbell tartans I've worn. With having a Highland connection, my name is Niall. It's the Gaelic. My father and my grandmother from the Isle of Skye. Right. So with the family connection, Campbell would be the principal tartan, but my grandmother was a Munro. So I would happily wear the Munro tartan as well.
Too, yeah.
MacPherson was family, and on my mother's side it would be Murray.
Okay, so you've got lots and lots of options. There's not many people as lucky as that to have those many choices of tartan. Very good.
Recently, during the two tournaments we've had, we had last year the Open and also the Dunhill Championship, I was asked to don the tartan. It was a hard one, but it was the Campbell of Loudon. That's why I could speak about that one. Yes. To take my shot on the front door when our usual doorman would be on his days off. My aunt, my father's sister, always tried to get me to wear the kilt a bit more often, but I I wore it with pride when I had to wear it.
When
I
you
wore it
had
with
to
pride.
wear it, yeah. Sometimes on the east coast of Scotland, it's not just the weather for
No.
a kilt, but St Andrews Town and community and greenkeepers do a great job of maintaining the relationships with the natural habitats and wildlife
They do.
around the area. Do you get much time to enjoy these habitats and open spaces that are surrounding us?
Not as much as I used to, but I was perhaps not with the hotel. I did. It's lovely, the beaches, the work that the local area has done to restore the sand dunes. Some years ago they were using to help bulk up the dunes for erosion. There was old Christmas trees, but people were discarding their Christmas trees.
Oh, wow.
They were brought down to reinforce the sand dunes.
Right.
So yes, so not quite as much as I would like to. Even further out would be Tensmuir Forest. That's a great place to walk, and there's a lovely beach there in the forest. But I don't know if you're aware, but the courses in St Andrews are all owned publicly.
Okay.
There were St Andrews courses. In 1973, when there was regionalisation, where Fife became Fife County, stewardship of the courses came under the auspices of the St Andrews Links Trust and Management Committee.
Yes.
So they do the bulk. They do all the remedial work to the courses from money generated by the players who come to the town. Because after all, it is public land. You're free to walk on it, provided it's safe to do so. And especially on a Sunday. By tradition, the old course closes on a Sunday. The other courses are open, and for years I always thought it was to do with no ball games, because of Scotland's strong religious past. No ball games on a Sunday. Religion does come into it, but it was old Tom Morris, one of the many sons of St Andrews. He was the keeper of the green.
Yes.
That was his official title. His main job was to help keep the rabbit and vermin population down.
Okay, right.
And old Tom decided one day, on a Sunday, he wanted to go to church. So no play was permitted.
So he brought everything to a standstill on a Sunday.
Everything to a standstill. And that tradition has continued. There are exceptions to the rule now that the open stretches to a Sunday. And there's another competition like the Dunhill Cup, which comes every October.
Okay.
And I think about 4 Sundays in the year through various competitions play is permitted, but for the other 46, 47, the old course closes.
Okay.
People are free to walk it, take their dogs onto the course, whilst the other courses, the New, the Jubilee and Eden, all remain open.
Okay, and last year, as we know, was the 150th year of the Open. That must have been a really big deal here for you guys.
Well, yes. It was actually the 150th playing of the Open. The 150 years of the Open was actually celebrated in 2010.
Okay.
The first Open was played in 1860, not, as you might imagine, at St Andrews. It was at Prestwick. The first, I think, 10 or 11, might have been 11, Open championships were played at the Prestwick course on the west coast. And between them, old Tom, and his son, young Tom, won 8 Opens between them. And young Tom actually won 3 on the trot. And in those days, it wasn't the claret jug, it was called the belt. And because young Tom had won it 3 times in the trot, he was allowed to keep it. And if memory serves me, it was 1873, no championship was held because there was nothing to play for.
Because he had
kept the belt. Then the play was reinstated in 1874. Sadly, young Tom died at an early age. His father was grief-stricken. But he continued until his death. He's actually buried in the cathedral grounds towards the back. There's quite a memorial to him at the back.
Okay.
But The name Tom Morris abounds, of course.
Yes.
Holes named after him, shops named after him. The restaurant across at the Links Clubhouse is called the Tom Morris Restaurant.
St Andrews is such a fantastic place, and everyone Scottish loves St Andrews. What do you think is your most favourite thing about St Andrews?
Well, I suppose first and foremost it is my home. It has so much. It has, when you combine history, golf, lovely beaches, and let's not forget the wonderful institute which is called St Andrews University. It's a great mix of town and students. Tourists come here regularly. And I would have liked to have mentioned the fact that this hotel that we're in just now, I hope this is relevant. In 1852, the first railway station came to St Andrews, because after the Reformation in the 1500s, St Andrews went into decline. And it wasn't until the early 1800s when the then Lord Provost of St Andrews, Hugh Playfair, was determined to bring St Andrews up to a standard. And with the advent of the railway station, which was here, it started to bring, the railway line linked up with Lookers, which was on the main London to Aberdeen train. That brought tourism to St Andrews, hence the reason for trying to get St Andrews upgraded in order to welcome guests. The station was later moved further into town, and it linked up then to go down the coast to the coastal regions of Crail, Anstruther and Work. And sadly, from a rail point of view, in '68 the line closed just as the hotel was opening.
Okay.
Because the land was owned by what was called the British Rail or British Transport. The famous Jigger pub, which we have, was the station master's house.
Okay.
So going back, what's not to like? It doesn't have the discos, but it has such a blend of personalities. The university is one of the main employers in the town. The student numbers, the university are looking to increase the student numbers to 10,000, which by university standards might not sound large, but for the local, being part of the local community,
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So they've had a program of building more halls of residence for the student, and I think another one's planned. But students now take over houses in the town and bring their friends in and
Great, good community, and
yes,
bring
there's
a lot
a society
of value.
in town called the Kate Kennedy Society. It's a university society. They hold a procession every year. They do a lot for charity.
Right.
And Kate, her father was the Archbishop of the town. So that's another way of bringing the university closer to the town.
Brilliant. Oh, well, that's great. Thank you so much for all your information. Very knowledgeable man.
You're very welcome.
Well, it was lovely to meet you and have this chat.
Thank you very much. I hope I've given you an insight into
I'm sure you have. If you're interested in more Scottish content or listening to more interviews, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website at scotlandshop.com.